starting out the podcast on a bad note. Robert Redford died 2 days after our Butch Cassidy episode came out. He died today. So hopefully when this episode comes out, we aren't killing Steven Spielberg or Bruce Springsteen. And then I wanted to pose a question to you. How many 90s movies do we have to do before we kill Harvey Weinstein?
First of all, fingers crossed, because I don't want Spielberg to die. We've done so many that have mentioned him already. I don't know if we're ever getting rid of him. I feel like that's the curse of the podcast. Only like the good people die.
We can't kill Harvey Weinstein. We can't kill R. Kelly. It's just going to keep going on forever. We can't kill P. Diddy.
Exactly.
No matter how much we talk about him.
If we did like a movie about Weinstein, like a documentary, he would die. Maybe he's just like in the background enough of every episode.
Yeah, if anybody knows any, hit us up.
Gotta say, rest in peace, Robert Redford. We lost a great person.
And let's kill Harvey Weinstein.
Yes, please.
Pop Culture Podcast. My name is Brandon, and joined with me, as always,
David. What's up, people? Welcome back.
We got a great show for you today because we are officially in Halloween month. That's right. It's not just one episode. It's a full month, and the last episode of Halloween month will be our Halloween episode, and don't worry, we have something great planned for you. So enjoy these scary, spooky, weird events that we have planned over the next few weeks, 4 to be exact.
And that includes the music because it's being born. It's about being born in the U.S., which is kind of like a horror story right now. So
very much so, yeah. I mean, Bruce Springsteen talked about it in his music too. Fighting in the Vietnam War, that's a horror story.
That's very true.
And then obviously Jaws, that's pretty self-explanatory.
There's a shark.
There's a shark, right. What's more terrifying than a shark? Harvey Weinstein.
Thankfully, he does not appear in this episode, I will say. So that's kind of a nice part.
Thank God.
We do got some other fun stuff for you guys, though. So stick around.
I looked at the Wikipedia page after watching this movie because I wanted to see what was going on, and it is the longest one I've ever seen, so I can only imagine how much we have to talk about today.
We got some fun stuff to talk about.
But before we get there, I have to ask you, what movies have you watched in the past week? Or did you watch something else that was on TV?
So I watched the Emmys on this past Sunday. I know you didn't watch them.
Correct. I forgot about them.
But they were a freaking mess. First of all, let me just say this. I am pretty happy with the winners, like who won in the categories. I don't think there was one category where I was like, oh no, that should not have happened. Again, I don't know all the shows though, so like maybe I would watch them and be like, oh, something else should have won. But regardless, I felt like in that aspect, it was good. I was very happy with some wins. I know Andor won Best Writing for a drama. Hannah Einbinder won Supporting Actress for a comedy. That was one that I was like rooting for in particular. So there was like a lot that I was very happy about. The thing is, the ceremony itself was terrible. I haven't seen any of Nate Bargatze's like stuff outside of the ceremony and like some of his SNL sketches. So I can't really say, you know, what I think of him as a comedian, but he did not really deliver. And he kind of just had one joke throughout the whole ceremony, which was, I'm sure you've heard, the bit about, oh, if, you know, you guys don't go over 45 minutes, I'm going to give this money to the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, which when he first kind of introduced it, it's kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, haha, that's a fun idea. But when like they start doing a bit about that every single time that he steps out, it got like so boring. It also felt like a very cheap way to like try and get like people to not go over with their speeches. And I feel like that made that worse in two ways, where if you did go long in your speech, it made it feel like you did not give a shit about the Boys and Girls Clubs. And then on the other hand, it also meant that if you were going really fast because you didn't want to take money away from it, you know, you didn't really get a moment to have for yourself after winning this achievement. So it kind of worked against literally all the winners because you're stuck in between a rock and a hard place. And it just made it all really bad. On top of that, the timing of things was weird. For instance, there was literally a category that was announced. I think it was Best Actor in a Comedy before Nate Bargatze's opening monologue, which is like, what? Why would you do that? Because he did like a little sketch. And then I was like, okay, now he's going to come out and give a speech. But no, he does the sketch. Then they did the category and then he came out. And I'm like, that does not make any sense. But anyway, now I'm done with my ranting. It just wasn't a good ceremony, even though I like a lot of the winners this year.
Well, I'm glad I chose to edit the podcast and watch a terrible game of football instead.
There we go. I'm happy we both watched something terrible.
Yeah, it was bad. I wasn't watching that much. I was mostly editing.
Well, that leads me to my question of what did you listen to or watch?
I listened to 2 albums that I want to talk about. Both of them weirdly kind of had the same reaction for me, despite them being completely like different works. So first one is Sister by Frost Children. I've talked about Frost Children before. I saw them at Summerfest this year. Very good show. The album was good. It wasn't like life-changing, but there were a lot of fun songs on it. It is kind of one note. The other album is Bite Reality by Kafune. I found them before their song blew up on TikTok. I would like to say like 3 years before that. Bite Reality was good, but it didn't like blow me away. There were a lot of good songs I liked on it. There was one song I really enjoyed. The first song I think is like the highlight of the album. But both of them I was kind of just like, these are good. They're not going on my album of the year list, unfortunately. But I would recommend if you like post hyperpop electro house, listen to the Frost Children album. And if you like kind of like grungy or indie rock that's got a little bit more of a like pop edge to it, listen to the Kafune album.
I did want to say, I did have a thought. I realized someone should name their band or group or like artist name Brothers and then name their first album Sisters. So then your album title is Sisters by Brothers. I don't know. That just popped into my head.
You should do it.
Me? Oh, God.
I'll produce it for you.
I'll start a duo with my brother. So then we literally are the brothers.
I like this. And then my song of the week is American Girl by Tiffany Day. This is an artist that I have been following not super closely for the past few years. I hear a song every now and then. And I'm like, this is pretty good. And then I hear some songs. I'm like, okay. This one was probably her best song that I've heard. Like, this is something that is so well produced and well written, and it's so catchy. Like, this is what pop music should be sounding like, and this is what people like Sabrina Carpenter are trying to, I think, in my mind, trying to emulate and create. So if you want to hear some great pop music, listen to American Girl by Tiffany Day. And I believe she said she has another song coming out soon, so I'm assuming it's ramping up to some kind of project, an EP or an album. But if you want to get on the wave, she's still very small, so support small independent artists. And with that, I think it's time to just get into the album, right?
Let's be born into the album. Same way that he was born into America.
It's time for me to birth this album. This album is Born in the U.S.A. by Bruce Springsteen. I wonder if anyone that is listening to this podcast has heard of it. It's only one of the best-selling albums of all time.
Just how best-selling? Do you know?
It's sold, it said over 30 million copies, which would put it in like the top 20 to 40 albums, I think, of all time.
That's really good.
But yeah, kind of a success. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the success later, and I think I'm going to blow your mind a little bit, because it blew my mind when I was researching it.
I'm very excited.
So this album was released June 4th, 1984 by Columbia Records. It is a Heartland rock album, and Heartland rock is a genre with a focus on telling stories about working class people. Oftentimes, they're from the Midwest. Now, Bruce Springsteen, very famously from New Jersey. That's like his whole thing. So, not really the U.S., or not the U.S., excuse me, not really the Midwest, but I'll let it pass because in some ways, New Jersey has got that kind of like working class edge to it.
I feel like New Jersey is the Midwest of New England, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Midwest of the Northeast. It shares it with Pennsylvania and then also like Western New York, which Western New York and Pennsylvania, I kind of consider the Midwest, but that's a story for another time.
There's going to be a lot of Midwesterners coming after you in this episode.
People have to go to Buffalo tell me that does not feel like Cleveland or Detroit or Milwaukee. Like, come on, what are we doing? Anyway, to get back to the album, it peaked at number 1 in 12 countries, including the US and UK. And in the US, it was number 28 on the 1984 year-end chart, number 1 on the 1985 year-end chart, and number 16 on the 1986 year-end chart. 3 years it was on the year-end chart in the United States.
That is crazy.
Unfathomable to be that high, that good selling. That much of a best-selling album in its time as well, over the course of 3 years. And I would like to say, as of 2024, it was still charting in Belgium, the Netherlands, and Sweden.
That's crazy. That's like, what, 40 years later?
Yeah, 1984 to 2024.
Jesus.
And, of course, it is certified 14 times platinum in Australia, 17 times platinum in the US and New Zealand, and diamond in Canada. So that I figured I'd cover the English-speaking world because, this album is in English. This is where it blew my mind. There were 7 singles from this album.
7? That's like almost the whole album.
That is more than half of the songs. That is literally over 50% of the songs on this album. Only one of them preceding its release, which was Dancing in the Dark.
That's crazy.
After the album was Cover Me, Born in the USA, I'm on Fire, Glory Days, I'm Going Down in My Hometown. All 7 singles reached the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100.
That is really crazy.
And that is a record that he holds with Michael Jackson's Thriller and Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation 1814. And I would like to say, there's a caveat to that. Since then, Taylor Swift has held all 10 spots, but it doesn't really count in most official records because it's an album bomb drop where it's just 1 week that all of these songs occupy the top 10 and then 9 of them fall out. And also importantly, of those 10 songs that she had in the top 10, none of them were officially singles because it's just the album coming out. So in my mind and in my heart, and then in the minds of Billboard or some of these category companies, this is not like a real thing. So I'm going to say Bruce Springsteen, Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson are the record holders, and I'm going to stick to that.
I agree. I support that.
Thank you. All songs on this album were written by Bruce Springsteen and produced by Bruce Springsteen, Little Steven Van Zandt, John Landau, and Chuck Plotkin.
I also got to shout out Little Stevie Van Zandt, who, of course, would go on to appear in The Sopranos.
Is that actually?
Yeah, Steven Van Zandt.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he became an actor.
Shout out Little Steven Van Zandt.
Hell yeah, shout out Little Van Zandt.
And he is, of course, joined by the E Street Band on this album, who are Roy Bittan on synthesizer, piano, and backing vocals, Clarence Clemens on saxophone, percussion, and backing vocals, Danny Federici on Hammond organ, glockenspiel, and piano, Gary Talent on bass guitar and backing vocals, and Steven Van Zandt on acoustic guitar, mandolin, and harmony vocals, and finally, Max Weinberg on drums and backing vocals. On this album, there are additional backing vocals by Richie La Bamba Rosenberg, great nickname, and Ruth Jackson. The engineering was done by Toby Scott and Bill Scheineman. Assistant engineering by Billy Strauss, Bruce Lampkov, Jeff Hendrickson, John Davenport, and Zoe Yanakis. And it was mixed by Bob Clearmountain and mastered by Bob Ludwig. Now, I got a few questions for you. How well do you know Bruce Springsteen, and have you heard this album before?
So I have not heard this album before, and I actually don't know Bruce Springsteen's music at all. I don't believe, unless there's
oh wow,
some that I've heard on the radio here and there that I just don't remember.
Did you recognize any of the songs on here?
Maybe I recognize some riffs and stuff like that, but no songs really stuck out to me as, oh, I've heard that one before.
Interesting. Okay.
I know it's kind of crazy considering that I was brought up with a lot of music from this time, but my parents were never really into Bruce Springsteen. I remember my mom was like, they just didn't really connect with them. I think that's really why I just never listened to any of his music. I obviously knew of him and know that he's really respected, and I know of his style, of the heartland rock style, but this is my first time actually listening to both his music and that style. I'm assuming you have heard something from him before, right? Because I remember you mentioned something about that.
Yes. I have heard a lot of songs. My dad likes Bruce Springsteen. I think, I don't know. He played me a lot of Bruce Springsteen. I grew up listening to this. We listened to like the oldies radio when I was younger. So I know almost all of the songs from this album despite never listening to it front to back.
That's kind of crazy.
I know. I this is a unique thing that only happens with a few artists. I feel like Bob Dylan and then like some other like classic rock artists that my dad really liked. I'm going to know a lot of the songs, but I haven't heard the full albums.
Is that Simon and Garfunkel too?
In a way, yeah. I know only the singles really from Simon and Garfunkel. But like some of these other artists, I'm going to know some of the weird like deep cuts that only my dad listens to. And then before we get into the track by track rankings, I want to say I think your favorite will be I'm on Fire. Do you have a favorite prediction for me or not?
So I did not actually predict any songs for you because I was too like busy trying to figure out what I thought. I mean, I could just say track 9.
Okay.
I'll just go with that. Glory Days. Or sorry, that's not track 9. That's track 10. I'm going down.
I'm going down. Yeah, that's song. Right. I have so many notes that I couldn't even look at the track list. But with that, let's get right into track number 1, the title track, Born in the USA. This was the third single from the album, released in October 30th, 1984, with a B-side, Shut Out the Light. All of these songs have B-sides. None of the B-sides appear on the album, which is also kind of crazy.
Wow, that's really interesting. Is that typical?
At this time, yes.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes you do a B-side or a double single from the album, but most of the time the B-side would be a song that the artist wrote that was like, oh, this is good, but it's not good enough to make the cut of the album. So instead, now we have a lot of artists doing like deluxe versions of albums or just making the albums too goddamn long and putting all of these what should be B-side songs on the album and then making them like 18 tracks. And it's like, well, this album isn't good anymore because you have too many songs on it. So I like this approach and I will defend this approach forever. Or just do like a little demos, like mixtape or something after the album if you want to get those songs out. I like that approach so much better because then it keeps the album as an art form intact.
And I agree with that.
This song was written to be the title song of the film that would become Paul Schrader's Light of Day.
Whoa, I didn't know that this was written for a Paul Schrader film.
Yes, Bruce Springsteen was supposed to star in it.
That's kind of crazy.
This song is the Republican man's anthem. Or wait, is it? In fact, it is not. No one can understand that this song is a critique of the Vietnam War and not a celebration of being born in the USA. It may have only reached number 9 on the Hot 100, but Rolling Stone did call it the 275th best song of all time, and the Recording Industry of America ranked it the 59th best song of the century. So I would say those are pretty good accolades right there. And now for my notes. Anyone who thinks this song is about America being good obviously does not have media literacy. I mean, it's not that hard to figure it out. I feel like I kind of got that on my first time, but you know, what can I say? This song is structured kind of like a folk song, but it also does have a pretty long instrumental outro, which is unique and is kind of more of his thing, his like flair that he's added to this. Now, this song gets a 2 based solely on the lyrics because, spoiler alert, I hate his voice, and this should probably be a 1.5. And the Prince effect is going really strong on this song and unfortunately will be a theme for the album. I think Bruce Springsteen is very talented. Obviously, he's a great songwriter. Look at how many albums he's sold. Look at like basically all of his accolades. Unfortunately, his voice is not for me. Most of these songs are not for me. And this one is a 2. So what did you think?
The first thing I'm going to say will probably sum up what I think of the album in general. But when I was listening to the album, I could totally see why Bruce Springsteen didn't connect to my parents or with my parents. I agree with you. The Prince effect is very strong here, where I can totally see his artistry and his impact, but it's not for me. The first thing I wrote was, damn, does he have a gravelly voice? I feel like it fits the song, but it doesn't really work for me. And it felt quite repetitive, which again, I know is the style that's being done on purpose. But it just didn't really work for me. This is a 3. But it's not like I was tearing my hair out. I think it's all right, but it definitely didn't work for me, and it's not going to keep me coming back. I think ultimately one of the biggest problems I had with this song, and not to get ahead of ourselves, but a lot of the songs in the album, is that it feels kind of stripped back. There isn't a lot going on musically in the background, and everyone knows that that's kind of what I care about the most.
This is kind of what I figured was going to happen and what your response would be. I was hoping that you would like it more than me, but unfortunately we seem to be synced in the things that we dislike. I think I like more weirder things than you and have like a broader taste of my likes, but I think we kind of we agree on a lot of the things we dislike. Sadly, we are not going to have the highest praise for Mr. Bruce here. You know, there's a lot of stuff we still have to talk about. There might be a song that you like. Who knows? Track number 2 is Cover Me. This was the second single, released July 31st, 1984, with the B-side Jersey Girl, which is a live cover of the Tom Waits song. And Bruce wrote this song for Donna Summer at the request of David Geffen of Geffen Records, huge record label. John Landau, one of the producers, thought that the song was too good and did not let Bruce give it away. And that's kind of a theme that you'll see. John Landau, as much as like Bruce said he was like fed up with him at some points, he kind of made the best decisions because this song reached number 7 on the Hot 100 and was a certified hit. For me, this song is better than Born in the USA in the fact that I would actually listen to it. I don't think it's better written. It's just musically more interesting. And his voice works a lot more on this song. However, I will need someone else to cover this, pun not intended, for it to be something that I actually return to. This is a 2.5, not my favorite, but that will be the score of my eventual favorite.
I honestly just agreed with you on all points. I prefer his style of singing in this song, and I felt like it had a little bit more that was missing from Born in the USA. But it felt like there was more production. You did have the electric guitar a little more present, which I did like. And this is a song that, I thought was solid. Again, it's not something I'm going to return to, but if it was on the radio, I wouldn't like turn it off or anything like that. This is a 3.5. As we will come to find, a lot of my scores are kind of in that middle 3.5 range. And they tend to fluctuate because of the previous song. So I gave the song a 3.5 because I gave the song previously a 3, the song previous to this a 3. And I was like, oh, this is a step up. I could see coming to this and thinking, this is actually a 3.
But you have to differentiate in some way.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say this is more of a 3.25, but, I'm giving it a 3.5 pretty much.
I wanted to ask you before we move on to the next song. We talked about the Prince effect. Was there Kesha effect going on in here? Did these songs bleed together? Was this kind of like just one, I don't know, blob of sound?
There was. I think the style definitely does mesh together. I think it's that kind of style when it comes to music. But I feel like the middle and later parts of the album kind of helped me with that, to the point where I didn't really think about the Kesha effect that much.
That's also the reaction I had.
It's kind of this weird mix of like, oh, you're like, oh, it's kind of there, but then later you're like, oh, I haven't been thinking about it at all because it's kind of gone away.
The songs are pretty different in the fact that some of them I can listen to and some of them are terrible. Like that kind of kept me, I guess, somewhat on my toes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Track number 3, Darlington County. The only real Darlington County is in South Carolina, so do with that what you will. Our paws each own one of the World Trade Centers. I wrote down 9/11 reference.
Yep.
Just like Biggie, Bruce Springsteen predicted 9/11.
At this thing, like every artist has predicted 9/11, to be honest.
Yeah, we should start a like tally of that on the podcast. That's something that I'll add to our like spreadsheet. I have so many random pieces of data in there, and I think a 9/11 counter would be great. He says in the song, "Little girl, you're so young and pretty." Yeah, I don't know, man, I wrote. This is the first time he says little girl, and it's weird every time to me, but that might just be a me problem. This is borderline unbearable, but it's not completely offensive, so it is a 1.5. I don't want to listen to this, but it doesn't offend me as much as some of the other songs on here. So 1.5 for me.
It didn't really work for me. This song felt very amorphous to me. It didn't feel like a song very much, if that makes any sense at all. I liked elements of it. I like that there's, a keyboard in there. I guess that's kind of it. But
Yeah.
I did literally write, I don't think Heartland Rock is for me. This is a 2.5. This is my least favorite song. Again, it's not like bad in the sense of, oh, I got to turn off. Like, I just don't like it. It's not that pleasant, but it's not like horrible or anything like that. It's not the worst thing ever written to me, but it certainly does not work.
Do you have other songs that are 2.5s on the album?
Weirdly, no, because I feel like the middle kind of stepped things up for me, starting with the next song. That kind of helped like the end of the album also not dip too low. I'll leave the rest to when we get there. I won't explain anymore. But pretty much this is the only 2.5 song.
Which you've kind of alluded to. I guess we have to step up our scores for the next song, Working on the Highway, track number 4. I would like to bring up something that I've been thinking about for many years that I haven't talked about on the podcast yet because there hasn't been a good time to talk about it, but this is the perfect time. He says in this song, I work for the county out on 95. This is obviously a reference to I-95, which goes through New Jersey, major interstate on the East Coast. And that brings me to my question. Which highway is referenced the most in songs? My submissions for this are I-95, the 101, the 405, and the PCH. I kind of lean towards the 101 or the 405, but so many times I've heard in songs take the PCH up to Malibu. So that might ultimately be the winner. Do you have any thoughts on this?
I think that those 4 are definitely up there. I could see it being the PCH because I feel like I've heard that quite a bit. I feel like Route 66, which that's an interstate, right?
Ooh.
Or is it not?
It doesn't exist technically anymore, but yeah.
But I feel like at least what used to be Route 66 is probably referenced in a lot of like country songs and stuff like that and folk songs.
That is a good call.
So I feel like that also might be like a sneaky one for anyone that doesn't really listen to country or folk that much. So
Yeah.
I feel like those are probably the 5,
Nice. I like that. The weirdest one I've ever heard, well, I guess it's not weird, but it's the closest to home is I-94, which I've driven on before. It's not like super close to me, but it runs through Wisconsin. And this was by an artist from Chicago, which obviously 94 goes through Chicago. So that's what they were talking about. But I was like, oh, wow.
I've been on that before.
I know where that is. I've driven on that. And it's not like it's not a typical one you hear in songs.
Well, it's ironic because for me it's the total opposite because everyone references all the interstates that run through LA because of course we have like 20 interstates that run through one city here and you just hear them all the time. So when you grow up here, you're like, oh yeah, I drive over that every day.
I've heard a few people mention I-10 before, and that's not limited to just LA. It also goes through Phoenix, and I think it goes over to Texas too. But that's another one.
Also, soak it in, audiences. This is the only time you're going to hear me reference to any of the interstates as interstate blah, 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 instead of the 405 or the 101. Don't worry, Angelinos. I am a true Angelino. That's the way I do say it.
I even wrote on
Calm
here,
down.
it says I-95, the 101, the 405, the
Nice.
PCH. Because I was like, I got to
So
do it.
you have been converted.
Yeah, I mean, that's the local lingo. I'm not going to call it. I drove on 101 today. Son, can't you see that she's just a little girl? She don't know nothing about this cruel, cruel world. That is Little Girl, mention number 2. This song does literally nothing for me and starts to get annoying after a while, but it is better than Darlington County. It is a 2. What do you think?
Okay, first of all, do you agree with me that this song kind of kicks off like a different style to the previous songs? Like a slightly different style? It's obviously still very, very similar, but there's like a little shift. Do you agree?
I didn't notice anything necessarily because I'm kind of all over the place. I appreciate that you heard something. I believe you.
I did because it felt more cohesive as a song, and the production itself felt more prominent. They kind of helped bump this song up for me to the point where I'm like, yeah, like if it came on the radio, I would maybe enjoy it a little more than I would some of the other songs. It's a 3.5. I still don't like love it or really enjoy it, but it's pretty okay. It's pretty solid. It's pretty good.
Nice. Yeah, that's basically all I have to say about that song. We had a huge detour about highways, but that's good. I mean, it's in the title, so.
Yeah, not much to say.
Now let's talk about something we both love, trains. Track number 5, Downbound Train.
Boy, we could do a whole episode on trains.
Oh, God, yeah, we could.
Don't get us started.
Speaking of trains, do you think the New York City subway is the most referenced train system in songs worldwide?
Not worldwide. I feel like the London or the Paris ones are worldwide. Or
London
Tokyo.
Underground?
Yeah. Or
I don't know about Tokyo.
I don't know.
I feel like it should probably be the English speaking world just because
English,
London
it's
also
definitely
is
New
just
York.
such a touristy city.
Yeah. London or New York.
I don't know.
feel
There's
like.
also whatever 300 million people in the US versus 100 million in Japan. So
That's also true.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We don't have enough songs with Amtrak mentioned in them.
That's true.
Shout out Biggie real quick because I know he mentioned the Amtrak. Anyway, Downbound Train. I have a fun note for you.
Yeah.
The way he pronounces words in this song reminds me of Vito Corleone.
I can kind of see that.
This song specifically, it sounds like he has the big fat cheeks and he's just like spitting so much into the mic. And it just feels disgusting. It feels very New Jersey. Sorry to all people from New Jersey. I think it's actually kind of a cool, underrated state, and I'd like to visit someday. But this is just not a good accent. And then I said, holy shit, he's flat on almost every note. I appreciate what he's trying to do here, but I do not want to listen to this ever again. This is a 1. I did not like this song at all.
Was this your least favorite song?
No.
Because if it was,
Oh, this is your favorite?
that would make a lot of sense. Because this is my favorite song. And I think it's fully because it's a much more like ballady song. I will say it, parts of the song don't work for me that well. The quieter part doesn't really work for me. But I feel like the fact that it's more of a ballad and the guitar work kind of like push this up for me and kind of make it work for me. Also, did want to say shout out to little Stevie Van Zandt because whenever the guitar be coming in, it's kind of helping. So this is actually a 4. It's a low 4. It's almost a 3.5, but it got pushed up over to a 4. This is a song that like if it came on the radio, I would like enjoy it and listen to it. I don't know if I would necessarily like come back to this song, but this is my favorite song on the album.
Nice. Cool. We continue our trend of splitting up, which is good.
Exactly.
Because we got 3 points between us on this song. And I think that's what the audience is here for.
Yeah. They're here for that, but they also want to hear us fight more. But we never are because we're just too passive.
We love each other too much.
Exactly.
Track number 6, I'm on Fire. This was the 4th single, released February 6th, 1985, with the B-side Johnny Bye Bye. Great name. I'm on Fire reached number 6 on the Hot 100, certified hit. This, I'll spoil it right away. This is my favorite. It's a 2.5, so I don't go very high on here, but there's a reason that this is my favorite. This is a good song, but I will not listen to it when there's a cover by Soccer Mommy that is a literal 5 out of 5.
Oh.
Yeah, so I don't think I've mentioned Soccer Mommy before. She's a like singer, kind of indie folk rock kind of. And this was actually the first song I heard by her cover of I'm on Fire. And I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. If you want to listen to the song, experience it a different way, instead of being whatever this is, it's stripped back. It's a like guitar, like it's a folk song. And her voice is incredible as well. So that's another reason that I like that more. But she did such a great job with that cover. I almost debated making us listen to it for this episode.
I mean, now I gotta check it out.
I encourage everyone to listen to it. I can't say enough about it. I think there's a little bit of Black Sabbath effect going on here because this song is very different from the rest of the album, I feel like, and it's more melancholic than a lot of the other songs. And this is my new proposal. Maybe we should call this the Bruce Springsteen effect, where my favorite song is the one that is the most different from the rest of the album because the album is bad.
Okay, that works for me.
We have the Black Sabbath effect where the album is good to decent, and the most different song is my favorite because it's good and they're a good band. This is just not a good album in my opinion, and this song is the best and the most different from the rest of it. So therefore, it's like kind of default my favorite song.
The Brucey Springsteen effect.
Yes. And then Hey Little Girl is your daddy home. That's number 3.
That's a lot of Hey Little
What did
Girls.
you think about this?
So this is my second favorite song. So you were actually very, very close.
That's pretty good.
I didn't really mind the kind of minimal music and the production of the song because I feel like it does fit the style more. I'm very interested to hear the song or the cover that you brought up because I do want to hear that because I can see the song working very well with like just the guitar and the voice. It's also quite a short song, which is nice.
It is.
In my opinion. Sometimes you want those short songs. It's a 3.5. It's solid. It's pretty good. That's all I got to say.
Similar to your very few words on that song, I have very few words about this next song, track number 7, No Surrender. I wrote one of the better songs on here, just a little long. I don't have anything bad to say about it. It's a 2.5.
That's interesting because this song is a little low for me. This is a 3. And the first thing I literally wrote was, no, bring back my ballads, please. Because I do genuinely feel like that style of Bruce Springsteen's music does work better for me than maybe his more rocky songs or however you want to call them.
Yeah, the more upbeat Heartland rock.
This was quite repetitive to me. And even though there was like maybe a little bit more background music than the earlier songs, it was still kind of just like it's a 3. Not much to say about it either, to be honest.
Now, track number 8, Bobby Jean. I wrote 2 things. I'm going to pass on this one. And ever since we were 16, which isn't technically a little girl mention, but the whole song kind of feels like a little girl mention. So I'm going to crank it up to a 3.5 there on the mentions. But however, this song is a 1.5 for me. It's not good.
So first of all, I, for a second, thought the title of the song was Billie Jean. And then I realized it's Bobby Jean. I got mixed up there.
Yeah, worse.
Yeah. I did like the production on this song a little bit more than the previous song. I don't have much to say about it that I haven't really said. There is like some fun stuff. Like this, you have the sax coming in, which is pretty fun. Stuff like that. I honestly just don't find this song to be like that memorable, even compared to some of the other songs that I didn't really care for. I feel like I kind of just forget about this song. It did kind of get pushed up to a 3.5 because of the sax and some stuff like that, which I thought kind of helped, but it is kind of in this like nether zone of between 3 and 3.5. And I am having trouble like reaching a decision on it. For now, I'm going to leave it at 3.5 with the caveat that like it is probably closer to a 3.
That's kind of like what you were saying about how the song before isn't as good. So then you have to like make the next one like higher because it is better. But like,
Exactly.
I had a lot of that going on too.
That's going to be, you're going to see where the issue comes to a head in the next song. I'll just leave it at that.
Interesting. Track number 9, I'm Going Down. This was the 6th single from the album, released August 27th, 1985, with B-sides Janie Don't Lose Your Heart and Held Up Without a Gun. 2 B-sides on this, which I think is kind of fun. It peaked at number 9 on the Hot 100. This song isn't necessarily worse than Bobby Jean, but my God, is it way more annoying. This is the type of song I think of when I hear Heartland rock, and this is why it is one of my least favorite genres ever. What you said was my favorite song on here. Unfortunately, this is reverse track 9 theory. This is my least favorite. And then I wrote a little blurb, I want to say. It is not my parents' fault that I don't like this because we would listen to oldies all the time when I was younger and I was kind of meh on them. Then I heard Lady Gaga on the radio and I was like, holy shit, music can sound like this, which leads me to my idea that music taste isn't learned. It's something that you're born with and you can be conditioned to like certain things, but it's way less about the environment than people make it out to be. Anyway, all of that is to say, guys, I don't hate oldies because they're old. There's just something in my head that says, no, this isn't interesting. I'm sorry. This is a 1. This is not good.
So going back to what I said about the last song and with things coming ahead, just like the last song, this is a 3.5, but I feel like this is a step up from the last song. So you can see my conundrum because I'm like, this does not deserve a 4 because it wasn't nearly that good, but it's also is a step up. Now, that's kind of making me think that I should just put Bobby Jean down to a 3.
I would say probably, yeah. If you like this one more,
yeah,
might as well.
And this will stay at a 3.5. Yeah. I don't really have any other notes because I was kind of thinking about my conundrum the whole time. To kind of jump on what you were saying about like learn stuff, in some ways it is a mix because I feel like you can come to like stuff that you're maybe exposed to a lot, but I do agree that in many ways it is kind of, in some ways you were born with your tastes, just as a person. I think it's like you can learn to like something even if most of the things you like, it's because you're kind of born with it. That's kind of my view on it, and my view on a lot of stuff, because like I think that's kind of true for films too. Some genres I like because my parents introduced me, and then other genres that they never watched. I watched one film and I was like, oh my God, this is one of my favorite genres. And the genres that they don't like and never showed us. So I do think it's definitely like partially both, even if I do think that the part where you're born with it is a lot bigger and more present.
And I think my best piece of evidence in this argument is me and my sister were raised with a lot of the same music, and we kind of like both were introduced to the like pop music on the radio at around the same time. And we had very different likes based on that. And that was kind of before we were able to form our own opinions. And that's where it's kind of like we had the same exposure to the same music and now we're just completely diverging. Like, I think that's our own thing. Like I feel like it's somewhere in your head that you have your music taste.
No, yeah, and I completely agree with that. I think that that's entirely valid.
All of that is to say I hate this song, but Anyways,
on to the next song.
Track number 10, Glory Days. This was the 5th single from the album, released May 13th, 1985, with the B-side Stand on it. And it reached number 5 on the Hot 100. In the wink of a young girl's eye. I'm going to count it as another half point, so that'll bring us up to 4 little girl mentions. Now, I got a few things. One of them, this first one I saw on Genius, which is a quote by Tony Soprano. Remember when is the lowest form of conversation. I like that quote. I've heard it before. I didn't know that was from The Sopranos. And I think this might be the best quote for how I feel about this song. I like nostalgia. I like the I remember songs, but it feels so surface level, and it like is actively making me hate this song, like listening to him reminisce in this way. And to quote Hooper in the film, I wrote this down immediately after he said it. I don't need this working class hero crap, which is the other half of how I feel about this song and kind of this album as a whole. Sure, it's working class stuff, whatever. I just don't care ultimately. Like, I feel like there's so many better working class anthems than a lot of this music. This song, I think, has a good argument for it being my least favorite song, but musically it's slightly more interesting and like better than I'm Going Down. This is a 1 as well. I did not like this.
I agree that there are much better songs that work as working class anthems. And interestingly enough, just like how the music worked more for you or the production worked more for you, it also worked quite a bit more for me, to the point that this is also a 3.5. I honestly don't have much more to say, with the caveat that like Again, I pay attention to the music more than the lyrics, and this music is probably music that there is more in the lyrics than there is in the production. So I'm sure that I'm also missing a lot of elements in the lyrics themselves because I don't listen that close. But I thought I should mention that. But yeah, I don't have really much to add. I do wonder what would happen if I did listen to these songs with lyrics, but I don't like them enough to do that.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Someday.
Yeah, sorry.
Track number 11, Dancing in the Dark. This is the lead single. It was written after John Landau said that the album needed a single. And Bruce said, I've written 70 songs. You want another one? You write it. Well, it's probably a good thing that Bruce wrote this song because it has over 1 billion streams on Spotify now. It was released May 9th, 1984 with its B-side Pink Cadillac. And, maybe John Landau was right because it also reached number 2 on the Hot 100 and number 1 on the Cashbox 100 in the US. And it was also number 14 on the Billboard's year-end chart and number 3 on the Cashbox year-end chart. And then it was also number 90 on the UK singles year-end chart in 2024.
Wow, that's crazy.
This song has stood the test of time. It is maybe his biggest hit. It kind of depends on who you ask, but I think this is probably his biggest hit. It's one that I've heard many times in my life. And I'd like to say, I would want to hear a cover of the song because once again, his vocal performance ruins it for me, but I think this is a good song, like as a song. I think it is probably tied for the best written song on the album with I'm on Fire, but I like I'm on Fire a little bit more. And sadly, the song kind of doesn't really do anything for me, so it is a 2.5. What did you think about this?
I thought that this was fine. It didn't actually work for me as well as some of the previous songs. It just kind of stayed at a 3 for me, and I don't have that much to say. I did want to throw something out there, which now I'm actively considering lowering every score on this album by 0.5. Because the more I sit with it, the more I think a lot of these scores feel too high.
I was wondering about that. I thought you just liked it better than me, but I would support that. I mean, I don't really like this album, so, but my opinion also doesn't matter in your scores.
I think I'm going to do that. So this would actually, I take it back. This is a 2.5. We're in agreement. I've kind of, the whole time we've been talking about it, something's been bugging at me with my scores. And I think it's that. I think everything should go down 0.5 points. So I'm going to stay with that and throw that out there. So for all of you listeners, I'm sorry. I should have realized that earlier, but that is what it is.
That's
Subtract
okay.
5. You guys can go and look at my Rate My Music if you want to see the scores. Wink, wink.
Exactly. Yes. We'll talk about that at the end of the episode.
So there we go.
But yeah, it's a 2.5. We're in agreement.
Yeah, we're actually in agreement. And I feel like we might be in agreement more with some of the songs, some of the previous songs. So there we go.
Now for the final song of the album and the final single from the album, the 7th single, track number 12, My Hometown, released November 21st, 1985 with the B-side, Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Kind of fun.
What?
Going for that Christmas number 1. It peaked at number 6 on the Hot 100. Thank God I grew up with computers and synthesizers. This is a 1.5. This sounds like something that people think is amazing that I will never understand. I appreciate that people like it, but I don't care. I enjoy nostalgia. It just feels so forced in this song to the point where it doesn't feel authentic. Also, his voice is pissing me off. I'm fine if we never do a Bruce Springsteen album again, I wrote. So kind of a bad end to it. It is a 1.5. Kind of go out with a whimper on this album, sadly.
It's interesting because this song feels a little more ballady, which we know kind of helped with some of the previous songs. It didn't help that much here. That being said, I like the production more on this song, the production itself. And I feel like when the music comes in here, the song starts to work more for me. But it's definitely not to the same level. It's a 3 for me. And that 3 is my shifted score, my new score, for lack of a better word. Yeah, I think it's a fine way to end the album. Obviously, like, I wish it was a lot stronger, but it is what it is.
It does feel like a good kind of like a tying up of the album's themes, though. I will say that even though I didn't like the album or the song, like it does feel like a good end to it. Now, I wrote down two questions here. I'm just going to ask, do you think hearing covers of these songs would improve them?
I could see that with some of them, yeah. I didn't like hate his voice. I don't think it really worked that well for me, to be honest. The thing that just didn't work for me at all is really the style, the Heartland rock style. And so I could see a lot of these songs being covered in a different style, improving the songs themselves for me. I haven't listened to any covers, so I guess that's something that I kind of have to wait and see, to when I actually get to that point.
I feel like this should be a good thing for artists to do, and please don't use AI for this. I would like to hear artists re-record other artists' work and see like if they can improve them in any ways, because I kind of felt the same way about Prince, where it's like there's a few songs, it's like there's some good stuff in there that I feel like could be a song. Maybe that just comes down to sampling and like writing a whole new song from scratch using kind of the original idea as a jumping off point, which I would also be interested to hear. But as it stands, this album doesn't really work for me. And then I wanted to ask you one last thing, which you kind of already answered. Will you listen to any of these songs again? And I guess specifically, will you listen to Downbound Train again, which was your favorite? And you had kind of said, eh.
It really is, especially now that it's a 3.5, not a 4. I don't think I'm going to return to it. Like I said, if it comes up on the radio or something, I'll listen to it. I'll enjoy listening to it in that moment. But I'm also going to forget about it like 10 minutes later. Again, this style is not really for me. What about you? Are you going to listen to any of the songs?
Hell no. I'm sorry, but no. This is just not something I want to listen to again. It is better than the Prince album. I'll give him that, and my score will reflect that.
Right.
I also did want to say, with your shift, Darlington County is now a 2.
Yes.
Which I think, with what I can recall in my mind, I think is the lowest score you've given a song outside of 100 gex.
Maybe. Well, 100 gex and Katy Perry.
True. Yeah. I mean, I guess I don't consider Katy Perry or Megalopolis a real episode because we knew we were going to hate them.
That's
like
that's true. That's a good point.
I don't know.
I mean, I just don't remember a lot of the other scores right now, like off the top of my head. So I would have to look.
2 is just super low for you.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe like you gave it to Fuck Me Interlude on like, on Biggie's album.
That's a good point.
But like that's also not a real song.
Yeah,
so
that is a point I didn't think about.
But as an album overall, this was not really an enjoyable experience. I didn't expect it to be, but it does feel like something that we should do, considering it's a huge album that's critically acclaimed, So going on our top 500, Rolling Stone's top 500 albums of all time, we're not doing too hot so far, I will say.
Yeah.
This album overall for me is a 2. Prince's album was a 1.5, so it is a slight step up from that. But this is just not good to me. And this is where we get the Prince effect, where it's like, yeah, I appreciate what he's doing here. I can see that this is good to a lot of people. It just doesn't do anything for me. And I'm sorry about that. And I probably won't ever understand it. What did you give the album overall? And I assume you have kind of the same feelings.
No, yeah, I agree. This is a 2.5. I'm not really going to return to this. I've said this so many times, but this style just really isn't for me. And I say that as someone that does like rock and a lot of different styles of rock. It doesn't really interest me. It doesn't catch my attention. Yeah, I just find it kind of boring at the end of the day, which in some ways I feel like is kind of worse than just being bad, Forgetting something can kind of be worse than remembering something for how bad it is, which I don't think this is. I think it's just kind of boring and not for me. I could see someone liking this. If you do, respect, great for you. But this is just not for me. I don't really have any interest in listening to any of the songs that much, even the ones that I enjoy more. And I don't really have that much interest in Bruce Springsteen's other music. I know that's kind of blasphemy, but that is what it is. It's kind of prescient too, because the trailer for the biopic about him came out like this month. And I gotta say, it looks really, really bad because it looks like typical biopic slop.
Who's playing him again? Is it Austin Butler? Something like that?
No, it's Jeremy Allen White from The Bear.
Oh, okay, yeah. That feels
a
about
good
right,
actor,
though.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
Will it be better than the Bob Dylan biopic?
I mean, the Bob Dylan biopic it wasn't bad. It was just very predictable and like by the numbers. It was just very okay. This one looks worse because it looks more predictable and more by the numbers, to be honest. I did want to say, though, Jeremy Strong is in it. At least we know that one element of it will be really good, and that's his performance, because he always delivers.
But that kind of wraps up the boss, Bruce. We unfortunately did not like him, but we do have to check in with another Bruce, another boss, and that is Jaws.
You know that reference. I'm happy to hear that.
That's because I was told it.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to tell you again today. But yeah, we are talking about Jaws, the movie that started blockbusters, literally. So, of course, I'm going to throw out the IMDb logline to you first. You got to tell me what you think. When a massive killer shark unleashes chaos on a beach community off Long Island, it's up to the local police chief, a marine biologist, and an old seafarer to hunt the beast down.
That sounds pretty great to me. Also, I did not know this was off the coast of Long Island. I thought it was Connecticut.
I also did not realize. I thought it was like further south on the coast, like North Carolina or something. This movie is, of course, directed by Steven Spielberg, our second Spielberg movie on the pod. It's produced by Richard D. Zanuck and David Brown, written by Peter Benchley and Carl Gottlieb, based on the novel of the same name by Peter Benchley. Oh God, here comes the word. Cinematography by Bill Butler, edited by Verna Fields. I got it this time. Music by John Williams, of course. Distributed by Universal Pictures, also, of course. And starring Roy Scheider, importantly, not Schneider, Scheider, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss, Lorraine Gary, and Murray Hamilton, amongst others. Before we get started, I did want to ask, did you know like anything about this film? Or let me rephrase that. What did you know about this film?
Pretty much nothing. I knew there was a shark that ate people, and I thought this was more of a horror than a thriller. Like I thought this was more of watching like gore and blood and guts on a beach instead of going out to chase and kill this thing. So that was a big surprise, which weirdly enough, I had that same reaction with Jurassic Park. Spielberg like does more of an adventure than I thought he did, I guess, because having never seen any Spielberg films, I was pleasantly surprised both times.
I feel like a lot of his films, even the ones that aren't technically this genre, but I feel like a lot of his films are adventure films. There's just a sense of like going on an adventure, even if it's something that's very serious.
I will say I was worried looking at the runtime of this film and thinking we were just going to be watching people get eaten on a beach. And I thought there's no way that's sustainable. So
don't worry.
Yeah, it turned out way better than I expected.
I'm happy to hear that. But before we get there, we got to start with another man, Peter Benchley, the author of the novel Jaws. He got the idea because he would go fishing like like a lot of the characters you see in this book. He went fishing with his dad a lot, and he encountered sharks a lot. That kind of, together with hearing about various fishermen catching giant sharks, gave him the idea for the novel. He also watched the documentary Blue Water, White Death, which we will talk about a little bit more later, and that kind of gave him a lot of the facts about sharks and the ways that they actually hunt and their actual behaviors. And so he wrote it. It took him a year and a half, and then he ran into a giant issue because he could not come up with a title, which I know we can both totally understand. He went through a bunch of titles, including titles such as Leviathan Rising, which he felt was too pretentious. He, together with his wife, they were writing down like pages of possible names, and they didn't like any of them. And finally, editor Tom Congdon, I think that's how you pronounce his name. I gotta say, I love that name too. Finally, he was like, hey, just call it Jaws. And when Benchley said, what the hell does that even mean? He was like, I don't know. It's catchy. So they named it Jaws.
It is catchy and it makes so much sense because the shark has jaws. I think he was too in his head about like the themes and the like what does it say?
Exactly. I think sometimes just going with a very short descriptive title works best because it's perfect. And that's why they didn't change it for the film.
Imagine it on a movie poster too. Like
Exactly.
you can just see that. Like that's the perfect title for a film. And I want to say one example of this not being good is a new horror movie that's coming out soon called Him that I've been seeing advertised everywhere. It's like that football horror movie.
I've seen the trailer quite a few times at the theaters.
I've been hearing the music that they're trying to like put out to like hype everybody up about the movie. That is such a forgettable title because it's so simple and it really doesn't tell you anything. Jaws at least relates to a shark and you think Jaws, oh yeah, I can see the jaws of the shark on there. Him, it's like, yep, that's a guy. That's him.
Well, and Jaws, I think, prepares you for the type of film it's about. Jaws, you're going to see like gore and stuff. Whereas Him, you're like, okay, so there's a guy.
I'm going to see him.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
I get what they're trying to do where it's like the quarterback, he is him. He's an athlete. He is him. But it just, it doesn't work.
Well, and to your point that Jaws works great for a film, another thing that worked great for the film was the paperback cover art for the book because they literally used that for the film's poster. It was illustrated by illustrator Roger Castell, and it was just so perfect that they were like, oh, there we go. Let's use that.
It's a great poster.
Best poster you could have come up with for this film, 100%. Now, as Hollywood tends to do, this book came to Richard D. Zanuck and David Brown before it was even published. They got a manuscript, they read it in one night, and agreed it would make a great film. And they got the rights for it for $175,000, which in today's money is $1.2 million. Just crazy how much inflation has gone up. That being said, Brown has said that if they had read the book twice, they would not have bought it because they would have realized how hard it would be to film a book that's set in the ocean for a large section of it. And we will talk a lot about that. Now, Spielberg wasn't known at this time. He had directed one film and some TV movies, but he wasn't particularly known, even though he had already become friends with a lot of rising directors that would come to like dominate the 70s and 80s. You know, Coppola, Lucas, that whole crowd. He had already become friends with them. They all knew each other. They all kind of helped each other out. And he came across the manuscript that Zanuck and Brown had read and fell in love with. And he also fell in love with it. He, asked them if he could direct it. But of course, he wasn't known, and they already had another director in mind, whose name was Dick Richards. Thankfully for Spielberg, Richards kept on calling the shark a whale, to the point that Zanuck and Brown kicked him off the project and told Spielberg that he could direct.
I do want to say real quick.
Yeah.
Dick Richards, his name is Richard Richards, or it could be shortened to Dick Dix, which is hilarious. Anyway.
I know. People used to name their kids weird stuff, guys. I don't know.
Richard Richards? Come on, people.
I don't know who would do that, but somebody did. Probably not just one person. I bet there are more Dick Richards out there.
You should name your son Agasair Agasarian.
Or change his last name to whatever his first name is.
So David Jr. David.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'm still thinking about Dick Richards. So Spielberg came onto the project and he decided to narrow the scope. He wanted to focus more on the detective and his story. And because of that, a lot of subplots from the book got cut out, including, are you ready for this? The mayor having connections to the mafia.
Ooh, it is New York.
And an affair between Ellen Brody and Hooper.
Interesting.
Yes, that's really in the novel. I'm happy they cut out. That had no place in the story, in my opinion.
No.
Now, Benchley did actually write, as you can probably tell by the credits, the first several drafts of the screenplay. Before bowing out, he said, I did not know how to really write a screenplay. I could give them the main storyline in script form and the ocean dialogue, but I didn't know how to add the character texture into the script. Because of that, Tony and Pulitzer winning playwright Howard Sackler was brought on, and he did uncredited revisions. And I think he actually asked to be uncredited. And his contributions included actually providing Shaw with the whole backstory of being on the USS Indianapolis.
That's a pretty major contribution.
Because, I mean, that's like Shaw's whole dislike of, or hate of sharks. So it's a very big contribution. When he was writing or rewriting the script, that's when Spielberg also suggested to add in Brody's fear of water, which he does not have in the books, which is also kind of a major contribution too. When Sackler finished his revisions, though, Spielberg wanted more. He wanted a little bit more levity, and so he asked a friend, Carl Gottlieb, to provide some notes, and if he wanted a role, because he was also an actor as well as a writer. And he actually portrays the newspaper editor in the film, Harry Meadows. He got back, he said, I want this role, and here are 3 pages of notes. And so he was brought on to, do a quick 1-week rewrite of the script. He stayed on through the whole production of the film because they were rewriting the script all through filming, oftentimes rewriting a scene that they were going to shoot the next day, the night of, or the night before. And that kind of tells you what production is going to come to be like. Now, the cast was, at first, didn't seem to be too much of a problem. They got Okay, let me throw this out there. I'm going to say Roy Schneider a lot because Scheider, they're both very similar names. I mean Roy Scheider because Schneider has nothing to do with this film. Scheider came on board for Brody pretty quickly. Aside from all the main roles in the film, which I'm sure help with the realism. So that includes, literally all the fishermen except for Shaw, everyone on the beach that isn't, a main character, everyone in that town hall meeting, those are all literally locals of Martha's Vineyard. Now, while casting for Brody did kind of seem to go smoothly, 9 days before filming was set to begin, they did not have a Quint or a Hooper. Eventually, they were able to sort it out. Actor and writer Robert Shaw was suggested to Spielberg, and he agreed to the role after his wife and secretary, that's 2 different people, his wife and his secretary, not wife and secretary, pushed him to take it. Richard Dreyfuss, meanwhile, was suggested by George Lucas, who of course directed him in American Graffiti. And Dreyfuss passed, of course, before changing his mind. Because he became afraid that he would not find work as an actor. So he was like, you know what? I might as well join. I want to start talking about production because this film's production is famous for being a shit show. I want to start with a quote from Dreyfuss. We started the film without a script, without a cast, and without a shark. When it came to filming a great white shark, the first suggestion that was thrown out was that they train a great white shark for the film. Before everyone realized it, that's literally impossible. So Spielberg approached art director and production designer Joe Alves to design and make 3 full-size pneumatic-powered prop sharks. Pretty much all 3 of them would do like a different movement that they would need throughout filming. And they would be put on levers so that they could move, all that kind of stuff.
Nobody does this shit anymore. We just do CGI, and it makes it so much better to have this like actual shark. And the amount of people you're employing as well, like to make this.
A whole special effects team. It is really sad. Now, it isn't maybe sad for Spielberg's sanity, considering what we're going to talk about soon, but it definitely is sad. The problem started pretty fast because Alves was promised a year to build these, but eventually he was only given 5 months. So he kind of had to like rush these out. And that's kind of where our first problem starts. But before we get to the mechanical sharks, one thing that Spielberg did think to do that was very smart was to go to the people behind the documentary Blue Water, White Death that we talked about, Ron and Valerie Taylor, and ask them to get him footage of real great white sharks. And so they went to Australia, and while Spielberg was filming at Martha's Vineyard, they were also getting footage. And on one of the days, a great white shark actually attacked their boat, and they got a lot of great footage of the shark, including the shark kind of ripping apart the shark cage. And that's the footage you see in the final film. That's thanks to Spielberg asking them to get him footage of real great white sharks. So the quality of that footage and the reality of that is thanks to Ron and Valerie Taylor.
Were they actually in the shark cage when it got destroyed?
I don't believe so, and I think that's why
Okay.
in the film Hooper survives, because it's obvious that there's no one in the cage. So they actually had to change the story because originally in the book he does die when he's attacked. Again, as I said, they were already shooting at Martha's Vineyard when this was going on, and so started a grueling and deeply troubled production. And a big part of this was the fact that Jaws is the first film to be shot on the ocean. And Spielberg wanted to shoot this way because he knew that shooting in a tank would not be as authentic. It wouldn't look as good. This set the production up for a lot of difficulties because James Cameron has noted, filming on water is not twice as hard as filming on land. It's 5 times as hard. And you had a director who had never done it before, and this was the first film to ever do it. And so right away, the film got hit with delay after delay. Sailboats would come into frame, equipment was getting wet, crew and cast were getting seasick. And of course, there were the prop sharks, which Spielberg had nicknamed Bruce after his lawyer and had caught on with the whole production. But the 3 Bruces, pretty much, didn't work at least 80% of the time.
Oh my God, that's like
80%. And this was in part because they had been built for fresh water instead of salt water because there was barely any time to build them. So the salt was destroying the mechanisms of these prop sharks. So literally all throughout the day and every night, the special effects teams were fixing the sharks. They were always being fixed and breaking and being fixed and then breaking, et cetera, et cetera. And it was so bad that, Richard Dreyfuss has said that every day they would hear the shark isn't working, repeat, the shark isn't working all day long over the radios. The one time that they did hear the shark is working, it was quickly followed by the boat is sinking because the orca was sinking with the actors and sound crew in it. And when the actors were being saved from it, the sound designer yelled out, "Fuck the actors, save the sound department." And he would win an Oscar, so he was kind of right. This was also not helped by some of the actors, because Robert Shaw would try to escape to Canada and would always binge drink during the production. I think he was just done with the production. This was made worse by the fact that there was a love-hate relationship between Robert Shaw and Richard Dreyfuss. Seemingly, and this was kind of from people that aren't Shaw and Dreyfuss saying their version. So I'm not saying this 100%, but it seems like there might have been some jealousy on Shaw's part of a claim that Dreyfuss was getting for some of his performances, and Shaw being tired of Dreyfuss's constant talking, while at the same time seeing Dreyfuss's talent as an actor and wanting to kind of push him to reach his full potential. So it seems like there was this kind of father figure role. Shaw's kind of saw him as this father figure role while also being jealous of Dreyfuss. Again, this is what kind of other people have said. I don't know if this is 100% true, but pretty much this resulted in Shaw provoking Dreyfuss by challenging his professionalism and weight all the time. So he would kind of do little insults at Dreyfuss. And it got to the point that Dreyfuss threw Shaw's bourbon overboard in retaliation. Shaw, in return, hosed down Dreyfuss with a fire hose. So pretty much they were just fighting the whole time. Spielberg, however, felt that this added to their character relationship on screen, and so he kind of let it go on. And I gotta say, I agree, because I feel like you can see this kind of love-hate thing going on between them, and it works very, very well. Going back to the sharks, it seemed to have helped the film because it changed Spielberg's plan when it came to filming the film, i.e., he could not show the sharks as much as he wanted to before. So instead of showing them showing the shark approaching the orca or swimming around it, he changed it so that you would see, those yellow floaties attached to it. Or in the opening scene, you don't see the shark biting the woman. You see the woman, the effect of the bites on the woman above the water. So pretty much all of those malfunctions caused him to change the way he was filming. And as he has said later, gave it a much bigger presence than if you had actually seen it. It added to the horror of the film and made it more horrifying than if you had just constantly seen the shark swimming around eating people.
And I think that's the mark of a great director as well, is someone who can improvise and let kind of the story and the production guide the way that the film actually will be. This is like talked about in music all the time of like
I agree.
when something goes wrong or something's not possible, you have to improvise and figure out what is possible that can achieve an effect of some kind. Like it doesn't have to be similar.
Exactly.
You know, this is why Spielberg is one of the greats.
I completely agree. And I think that honestly makes the movie, it takes it from being just like a schlocky monster movie to actually being a really good thriller. Not to get into what I think too soon, but I completely agree with that. Another thing that went right is that Robert Shaw is a really good damn writer. If you don't know, he's written plays. He's not only an actor, but a writer too. And he actually rewrote the Indianapolis speech. At first, it was a several page long speech, and he was like, I can't get through all this. Like, it's not going to work. So he begged Spielberg to rewrite it. And that's what you see in the film. That's his version that he rewrote. Another thing that didn't maybe go as right was he asked Spielberg if he could also perform the speech on one like cup of bourbon or something like that, or 1 cup of alcohol to kind of help him feel tipsy as he is. However, when he got to set the next day, he literally had to be carried because he couldn't like walk straight and he could not get through the scene. So that night he called Spielberg and he was like, okay, I'm sorry. I don't remember what happened. Did I embarrass you today? And could I please do it again? So he did it again and got it right. Now we've been talking a lot about, oh, this was crazy, this delays, etc., etc. I want to throw out some numbers so that you can start to realize how delayed this film was. Spielberg has estimated that during a 12-hour shooting day, they would, if they were lucky, shoot for 4 hours out of a 12-hour shooting day, less than half. And I mean, this, like, the crew were fed up with the film too, to the point that they called the film Flaws instead of Jaws. And Spielberg didn't show up on the last day because he thought that they were going to throw him over water, literally. Throughout the whole production, Spielberg was like, oh yeah, I'm getting fired. I'm totally getting fired. He never did, but he kept on expecting it. And on top of that, the media was catching on to all the delays, and they were pretty much saying that, oh yeah, Spielberg's never going to work after this again, to the point that he started to believe it. Now, to continue throwing some numbers out to you, the film eventually wrapped on October 6th, 1974. It was originally scheduled to shoot for 55 days. How many days do you think it actually shot for?
All right, I'm going to use some lessons from In the Mood for Love. And I'm going to go with 280 days.
So it wasn't that long, but it was 159 days. Still 100 days over, and the original budget of $4 million shot up all the way to $9 million. So it doubled, or more than doubled. And just $3 million of that was for the effects. So pretty much for the sharks. But the shoot wasn't over yet. Because when he was editing the film with Verna Fields, Spielberg realized he was missing a shot. So he literally went to a pool in Sherman Oaks at a friend's house and got the shot he needed. Which I had to add there because, hey, I'm literally sitting in Sherman Oaks right now. Born and raised.
Hell yeah, Sherman Oaks represent near a pool too. Could have been the one.
That's right, I got a pool in my building. Exactly. So now let's talk about the release and its effects quickly before I got some more questions for you. Now, Jaws opened in 409 theaters, which at the time was the widest release ever, because for anyone that doesn't know, back then, movies were released kind of in a few theaters in the big cities at first, and then little by little rolled out across the country. So that was a very unusual opening to open in 409 theaters. And it became a smash success. It grossed a record $21 million on its first 10 days and $100 million in its first 59, which was a record at the time, never done before.
$21 million in its first 10 days?
First 10 days.
So it already made up its budget.
Yeah, exactly. And this
That's
is all the way
crazy.
back then. This is not now. This is back then. It was so successful that it had audiences lined up around the block, thus coining the term blockbuster, the daddy of them all. And when you put together all of the film's re-releases, including this year's 50th anniversary release, which I did go and see last week, it has grossed $490 million on its budget of $9 million. So really, really good. It made a lot of money. And it was the highest grossing film of all time until Star Wars came out several years later. It also got a lot of positive reviews from critics. It was nominated for Best Picture, Original Score, Film Editing, and Sound at the 48th Oscars, and won for Score, Editing, and Sound. And it has obviously become a classic. It spawned a whole genre of knockoff movies such as Piranha, and it changed how movies are released. Nowadays, all movies are released in wide theaters. It coined the term blockbuster, which nowadays studios are just trying to get blockbusters, and that's it. That's all that they want. On top of that, it established the summer as the prime release season for films, because before there wasn't really a prime release season, or it was another time instead of the summer. And of course, it catapulted Steven Spielberg's career. As he has said, Jaws got him final cut for the rest of his career, literally the rest of his career. Which, for those of you who don't know, final cut means when a director has the final say over how his film will be edited into its final form, instead of the studio having it. And it's very important for a director to have that if they want to have control over their projects. The story for Spielberg does, I wouldn't say end, but it does have maybe a sadder section before we get to the end, because the film was so hard on him that he suffered a panic attack after production wrapped, and he couldn't really enjoy the film's success for quite a few years because the production literally gave him PTSD, and it affected him so much that he had to go to the Jaws experience on the Universal Studios tram ride where they got the actual orca boat that they shot on. He had to go to that boat, literally lay down in it, and day by day process his PTSD. So he would literally sneak onto that whenever he was on the lot. And eventually he was able to process it. The other sad note that I guess I'm going to leave the film on, so I guess it is really just a sad ending when talking about this film, is the effect that this film had on sharks. It should be noted, a lot of shark experts have said that there are a lot of true-to-life elements about sharks in this film, including a lot of their behaviors when hunting and just their behavior, as an animal. That being said, this idea of a man-eater or a shark that only eats people or goes after people specifically is false. And it gave the wrong impression just to the general audience. And it was so strong that people for a while kind of stopped going to the oceans. You saw a downtick in the amount of people going to the ocean. And it also, unfortunately, caused an uptick in hunting for sharks. And this was also in part because a lot of fishermen saw Quint as the sort of hero role model for them to emulate. So quite literally, because of the film, the shark population was decimated. It dropped by, I believe, something like 80%, 70%. It was up there in those numbers. Now, thankfully, nowadays, these negative misconceptions have been debunked and the shark population is on the rise. But there are still terrible practices in place, such as shark fin hunting, where literally the shark's fin is cut off and then they're released back into the water to drown, which is crazy. And yeah, that's my final note, where even if a film's success, even if a film is very successful, it can always have consequences which are not as fun or not as nice.
I mean, the fact that this was a blockbuster, it made me think about how this did change everybody's thoughts. Like, as I was watching it, I was thinking about how, yeah, shark attacks are scary and they're just not common. And I was thinking as they're talking, like, their dialogue of like, oh yeah, they attack humans all the time. They attack them in 3 feet of water. And I was like, I remember learning about all this stuff and saying like, no, this isn't real. I will say that didn't take away from my enjoyment of the film.
Yeah, the film still works incredibly well. even if like those parts have aged and even if we do know better. And I think it works well because it's just such an incredibly well-made film. It also should be noted for, another reason why everyone started to believe what the film kind of presents as sharks, or maybe the negative aspect it presents about sharks, is this is kind of the first film that dealt with sharks. Like, there weren't really any films before this that were about a shark and presented, a marine biologist who talks in the whole film about sharks to the audience. So that's probably another big reason why, those misconceptions spread so much. But now, I did want to ask you some questions. And the first question is, first, how does this compare to Jurassic Park? And were you thinking about Jurassic Park when you were watching the film?
Not to spoil it, but I'm going to spoil it right away. I liked this better than Jurassic Park, which is not what I was expecting at all. And I was thinking about Jurassic Park as I was watching it because I do think that Spielberg has a style, not necessarily an auteur style, but the way he shoots movies is just like when I think of a movie, I'm thinking of Spielberg. The look of his worlds is like what a movie should look like. He might be like the man to make what like a movie should look like. Like I feel like he kind of developed that. The way that everything is shot and the camera movements are so unique, but they feel like common at the same time. Like it pioneered everything.
I wanted to kind of jump on that. And this is something that I was going to bring up in one of my questions later, but hell, why not bring it now? We, a couple of weeks ago, talked about staging when it comes to, the actors in the frame. And literally the whole time I was watching this film for the second time in the theaters, I was thinking about the staging because I think this film might just be the best example of how incredibly good Spielberg is at it. There are so many times when it's literally one shot following characters through several different places, and time again, he will have like set up this fantastic staging of the characters, for lack of a better way of saying it. Then we'll break it and have them move and set up this other like fascinating shot all within a one shot. And it's crazy how good he is at that. I think we talked about it at Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
And we talked about it with Mike Nichols as well.
I think Spielberg might be the master of it, to be honest, because the way he stages his films, they look incredible. And he is able to pull it off time and time again. The scene I think of the most is the scene where you have the mayor talking to Brody on, I don't know what it's called. I guess it would be called a raft, where they're going to the land from the island and they have the car on the raft and they're talking. That scene specifically, like my mind wanders to that scene randomly because the staging in that scene is so damn good.
I thought you were going to talk about when he was on the embankment.
Well, that too.
And they're like talking about you need to shut down the beach, and then you kind of like move over with the characters and you see the billboard.
Well, that too, because there's just like every scene is so well done that like any one of them could serve as an example. They're all just incredibly well shot and well staged. And I think that it's crazy that he was so good at it, considering that this is his second feature film, because I feel like typically when you watch a director's filmography, you see the growth. With him, at least in this aspect, it was there from the beginning, which is kind of crazy.
Some people just think in that way. I don't. And
I don't either.
Incredible to me.
Yeah, I wish I did.
That's why we write.
Not that I want to direct, but that's very, very true. Now that we've kind of talked about the staging, I did want to ask, what did you think of the effects? And we kind of alluded to this with how we think that the film works better the way that Spielberg pivoted. But perhaps let me ask you, did you notice maybe the shark like model? Did you notice maybe any times where it kind of felt off, or did the effects generally work for you?
I thought the effects were really good. The one time where I was kind of like something's going on is when the camera would go from like just on the surface of the water to underneath the water, and the water would change colors and it would kind of move differently. That was the only time where I was kind of like taken out of it, but I think the effects like looked real, and then I assume a lot of the looking at the shark was like the actual shark.
the times you do see the model, which I think a lot of it is, when it jumps onto the boat at the end, stuff like that. I think it looks realistic enough to life, and you see the amount you see is little enough to where it does work.
There's definitely that look to a lot of I guess they're prosthetics of like, this is an old film and it doesn't look like super real, but it works because you're like, this is the 70s, So
Yeah, exactly. It does work. And it works that you barely see it too. I think that's probably the element that works the best because, most of the time you see the shark, it's a real freaking shark just in the water. Something else that I did want to ask you before I ask your general thoughts is pertaining to the characters. And that is, did you expect this film to be so character focused?
Not at all.
And what did you think of the writing on them?
The other Spielberg movie we watched had a different writer, but it does feel like the movies that he chooses to direct are very well written. And maybe some of that is because he's going to keep rewriting them until like throughout production.
I think that's a big part of it, and just his influence on the films.
Right. Yeah. He is very much like a hands-on kind of guy. Yeah, I did not expect this to be this character-driven. Like I said before, I thought it was going to be gore and guts. I did not expect to like root for a police officer. Spielberg is the only director that I feel like that can make me do that.
The only one.
I don't know what to say that you haven't said or that hasn't been said about this film, because it's a classic for a reason, and it's even better than I thought it would be.
And to that point, revisiting it, especially watching it on a renovated 4K print in the theater, made me realize just how good this film is. Because the first time I watched it, I was like, oh yeah, this is good. But I think it took until the second time to realize just how good this film is.
There's a lot of movies I've seen that I've enjoyed watching at home, that I think these are really good. This is great on small screen. I think of After Sun as one of those examples where it's like, this feels like the perfect movie to watch at home. Jaws is a movie that feels like you need to watch it in a theater. And I kind of am starting to realize that that actually is a thing, because I never believed anybody when they would say, oh, you need to get out, you need to go experience it in a theater. I kind of see, for like, especially with this movie, it's like, yeah, this kind of would go crazy on like a big screen with like surround sound. I can't say the same for a lot of Marvel blockbusters or a lot of blockbusters for the current day. It feels like a lot of blockbusters now are meant to be seen in theaters just because it's like, oh, we're going to do these crazy effects with this crazy sound. It's not because of how well shot the film is that you want to see it in a theater. And that's how I feel about this. It looks so nice that I want to see it on a big screen.
I completely agree. There is a big difference between a blockbuster like this and a blockbuster nowadays, which is a whole conversation, because I think people forget that back in the day, you would get like one or two blockbusters a year. They were rare. It was an event. Nowadays, you get a blockbuster like twice a month, 3 times a month sometimes. It's not an event. They're not made to be seen in the theaters. They're just a film at this point that's just very, very expensive. And we could talk about that for hours,
And we will at some point.
Yeah, no, definitely. I wouldn't call any of the Marvel films blockbusters, to be honest. Yeah, they make monies like a blockbuster, but they're not a blockbuster in spirit, I guess I would say.
Not even like Endgame or Infinity War, when it was like an event that everybody wanted to go see.
Maybe that, because it was kind of...
That's where I would feel like...
Yeah, I feel like those are, because those are event films, because it's the culmination, all that kind of stuff. But even then, it isn't really for the cinematography or the look. It's more of just, the build-up,
It's more of a, you have to experience it. And I guess like... I was thinking of it more of as we do our TikTok series of trying to guess the big like blockbuster films, seeing the stark difference in the box office success of these pre-COVID films versus what they are now. It kind of made me think of that, of how this was actually more of an event than I even realized in the moment. Like you would see on Twitter, like everybody freaking out saying, oh my God, you have to see this movie in a theater. And I remember like At that point, I still lived here in Wisconsin in kind of a relatively smaller area. And I remember all of the showings being sold out for weeks because everybody needed to see this movie and people would be seeing it again. And that is, to me, like a real blockbuster. Even if I agree exactly 100% with what you're saying about it's not because of how it's shot. It is an event, though.
At the end of the day, something that's an event is an event for a reason. Doesn't matter what the reason is.
Even if the movie sucks, which I don't know. I can't say. I haven't seen it.
I've only seen the second one. And it was just very blah. But anyways, that leads me to the last question, which is not a question, just what did you think and what was your score? We've kind of talked about it already, but if you have anything to add.
Anyone who remembers my Jurassic Park score knows what my score is for this film, but I'm going to bring up one last thing. The beginning of this movie, they're listening to the radio. The radio station says their call sign. And this is something that me nerding out about what I know about radio. So the call sign is WISS, which means it is on my side of the Mississippi River. It's on the eastern side of the U.S. And I thought, WISS, wait, that is a station in Berlin, Wisconsin that I can hear on the radio right now. If I turn on the radio, they just used a real call sign. That station's been around forever. It's an AM one. So I just wanted to mention that because that is like, I'm always looking for these weird little details. Like when we watch Mulholland Drive, I was like, oh my God, there's an address on Havenhurst Avenue. I probably have driven by that, even though it like wasn't real. I love these little moments where it's like this, you could have chosen a real station, but instead you chose some random station from Wisconsin to throw in there. And that's kind of fun. So, and then to give you my score, this is a 4 out of 5. I was not expecting it to be this high. I went into this movie thinking if it's as good as everyone says it is, it'll be a 3.5. There's something about this that I just connected with a little bit more than Jurassic Park. And I don't really know why or what it is, but this is a really good movie, and I was not expecting to like it this much.
It's that kind of film. And I'll throw out my score. It's a 4.5. There's one reason it's a 4.5, not a 5. It's because there are other Spielberg films that are even better, in my opinion, i.e. E.T., not to spoil our eventual episode one day on that, but I'm like, nothing can beat that, so it has to be a 4.5. It's very close to being a 5, though. I would say it's up there with Jurassic Park, which I don't remember what I give. In my mind now, it's a 4.5. I probably give it a 5. In any case, now in my head, it's a 4.5 because I'm always recalibrating scores all the time. But this score, like the score for Jaws went up from a 4 to a 4.5 because I was like, wait, no, this is as good as like Jurassic Park and a lot of the other really, really good Spielberg films. So yeah, I completely agree.
Is Spielberg my favorite director? Potentially. I'll have to continue watching, but you know, there's a reason that everyone loves him. And I think he is probably the best director out of any of the big name ones, you know, where it's like when somebody says their name, you know who that is. You know, like there's some directors like we talked about with Mike Nichols where not everybody knows who that is. If you're a like film person, you're going to know who Mike Nichols is, but everybody knows who Spielberg is. You can go on the street and say, have you watched a Spielberg movie? And people will probably be able to tell you one of his movies, at least, that they've watched.
And it's probably like a movie that they grew up with as a kid, too, on top of that.
And that whole point of them growing up with it as a kid could extend across like 50 years
yes,
of growing up because he has made so many smash hit movies that are so good.
Well, that's what I wanted to bring up. He, I think, is one of the most consistent directors and someone who's been working consistently for over 50 years. And if you look at his track record, I mean, it's just like year after year releasing a great film. You know, you have Jaws, Third Encounter of the First Kind, E.T., like it just goes on and on. I mean, he literally like released the greatest, like the highest grossing film twice. With Jaws and then with E.T. Like that tells you something.
And you have Jurassic Park, you have Schindler's List.
Just the amount of blockbusters he has released is kind of crazy.
We also have to talk about, before we finish up, John Williams. We did a Danny Elfman score last week, which I thought took away from the film. There is maybe one other person who's as good at scoring films as John Williams, and he knows when to not put something in and let the film talk for itself and not have music in it. And he knows when to use the music in. he is a legend, and he is going to be one of the people that when he dies is going to be extremely sad, because we are going to lose such a valuable piece of film in general. Yeah, I had to shout that out because obviously everybody knows the duh score, but the whole film is expertly done.
Well, and I think the power of the da-da part, like, speaks for itself, because you hear it everywhere. It's a meme. It's, you hear it and you're like, oh, haha. And then you watch the film and it works perfectly every single freaking time. And I think that shows you his skill. And I mean, that's like so many of his scores, because every single one of his scores becomes iconic and then becomes so iconic that it's kind of made fun of.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
then you go watch the film and it still works perfectly every single time. And I think that shows you like just how amazing he is as a composer. He's, for me, like one of 5. And I say that obviously as someone that just listens to a lot of soundtracks. So I have my own personal like favorite composers, but he's one of the greatest, if not the greatest film composer to ever live, hands down.
There's something to be said about how much a score can affect a film. And we saw that with Good Will Hunting, about how, I mean, at least for me, it kind of took away from moments. This is just one that elevates it so much more. This was good. And I think this is a great way to kick off Halloween month.
I completely agree. We could not have chosen a better film. And we could not have chosen a better Spielberg film to do as our second Spielberg film.
Except maybe E.T., because I know you ride or die for E.T.
Well, I ride or die for E.T. That being said, I think it's good to watch some other films of Spielberg's before you watch E.T.
Before you watch his masterpiece.
Yeah, but kind of like that, Let the other films have a chance.
Yeah, exactly. And we couldn't have chosen a more whatever album to do. I brought up how a lot of these movies that we're watching are classics for a reason, that are just so good and better than I thought they would be. A lot of these classic albums that we're doing are, in my mind, not classics for a reason, and I don't really understand why they're so popular. That's just kind of a weird little trend I've noticed.
I will say we ain't done the Beatles yet, although you could still dislike that. I don't know.
Lord knows we have to.
With that, Brandon, where can they find more information about us?
If you want to connect with us, and if you want to learn what we are doing for next week, week 2 of Halloween month, you can follow us on our Instagram, and we will tell you right now what movie and what album we're listening to. That Instagram is Uncultured Pop Culture. And you can also email us if you have any thoughts on anything we've talked about today at upcpod@gmail.com.
Or if you have any suggestions.
And if they want to see what we've rated and what we think about other things outside of the podcast, where can they find us?
Well, you can go down to the link tree in the description of this episode, or on our Instagram, or just Google it yourselves and find us on Letterboxd and on Rate Your Musics to see our scores.
Nice. I was testing you to see if you'd say LinkedIn.
Yeah, I probably will next week.
You passed.
You never know. I also did not mess cinematography, so I'm getting better.
We're improving.
Little by little.
There will be some new thing.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that it's going to be my turn to start messing up something every week. I feel like...
Or I'll find another word.
Well, after editing, I feel like I like to say that you are joined with me in the intro, and I'm very worried about, because I've said that multiple times now. So I'm worried that that's going to become a thing.
I am joined with you.
But audience, if you would like to be joined with us, you can do the greatest thing ever and leave us a review on Apple Music /podcasts, or leave us a comment on Spotify, and rate this show, please. Share it with your friends and family. Share it with your enemies, because we want a wide variety of people.
We want to repair relationships. So there we go.
Exactly. And what better way to repair relationships than through the power of music and movies? 2 of the greatest things to ever exist. I mean, I'll say it.
Just don't send your enemies the Megalopolis and Katy Perry episode.
I don't know. If you want to punish them, I would say send them that.
That's true.
But I think that's where we leave it this week. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next Halloween week for week 2 of Halloween month.
See ya.